Hello, everyone. My name is Glenn Hudson. Welcome to one of the first sessions here at Blackbaud Developers Conference. Give me just a moment to share my screen for us to go ahead and get started. Hopefully, you're seeing my screen right now that says getting started with Sky API and Sky add-ins. Again, my name is Glenn Hudson. I'm a principal solution architect here at Blackbaud. I joined Blackbaud in 2007. I stopped counting the number of years. I think it's 18 years now. I've been working with Sky API and Sky add-ins since 2019. Today's session, and you'll see me taking a look to the right because that's where the screen is. The other screen is that today we'll be looking at is a 101 session meant for those who are really new to the basic concepts of APIs and the tools available to take advantage of them. So this is really, oftentimes we dive in during the developers conference, and we know we got people all over the range of those getting used to getting into the system. So this session is a what is an API. So this is going to be that very basic 101 session. The agenda today, we'll be discussing such questions such as what are APIs? What is Sky API? What are Sky add-ins? How do pro coders get started? What is Power Automate? How do low coders get started with Power Automate? And now, why did I walk into the kitchen? I've never been able to answer that last one, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. And if you have problems with the presentation downloading, we'll get that fixed in a bit. I just was able to finish a presentation this morning due to some other requirements, so that's why I posted it that way. We'll try to get the presentation out to everybody later if needed. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what is an API, and because I don't see myself bouncing back and forth, I'm going to turn off my camera, but I'll be back on in a few moments. And we'll have a Q&A session at the end as well. But what is an API? An API, an application programming interface, that's the phrase for it, are mechanisms that enable two software components to communicate with each other using a set of definitions and protocols. For example, the Weather Bureau software system contains daily weather data. The weather on your phone talks to the system data via APIs to show you the daily weather updates on your phone. It is not always necessarily Apple or Android that's actually providing you that weather. Their apps are going out to the National Weather Service to get that information and delivering it locally. So that's the key thing here. Is that it's a way to allow one system to contact others. Some of you may have seen this concept before, but again, I don't want to take anything for granted. But the role of API is that it allows distinct systems to share information in a structured manner. We'll be talking about that structure in a few minutes. This prevents that direct access to the underlying data in each system. You're not touching somebody's direct database. You're asking for information from that database or that system, but you're not touching it directly. Think of it as a restaurant. The waiter is the API. You don't go directly to the kitchen and say, hey, give me a hamburger or a veggie burger. You ask the waiter takes that request back to the kitchen makes the hamburger or the veggie burger, gives it to the waiter, and brings it back to you. That waiter is the API, is that intermediary between yourself and the kitchen that brings that order and the food back and forth. So in this case here, the API receives a request from system A, API sends the request to the internal parts of system B, and the API returns the results to system A. So really it is that waiter. In a full disclosure, several of these pictures are generated by AI without the P. So if anything looks kind of wonky, too many fingers or something, it's because I didn't look things very closely. Another way of looking at this is that the API is an intermediary in front of another system. So you're not going to get to the bones directly unless you go through the dog first. So it allows access to pre-selected set of data. So I can't go in and just get anything from that other server. So that other server, the API is a gateway, that gatekeeper that says, okay, this is the data you can access, and this is how you can access it. So you got that guard dog there. There's the API that is guarding his dogs. Again, that was generated by AI in full disclosure. APIs are not just for the web. Our focus today is on APIs for Blackbaud's web-based solutions. But APIs can be present in a number of different scenarios, such as on-device systems. I'm a big Apple person, I admit it. So these are examples here, but there's common things as far as Android as well. But you may hear things such as Apple's Music Kit, Weather Kit, Health Kit, Apple's dev days themselves are the beginning of next week. These are all examples of the device or system APIs that allow third parties to develop the apps. So this allows access to the data to those parts of the system. So third parties that are wanting to make a health app, their own health app, or their own other app, or music app, or interface for an iPhone or iPad or a Mac or whatever, they're not accessing that directly. There's actually APIs on your devices that also facilitate that. So again, if you're using any of these third-party integrated things with those areas, they're using APIs as well. Now, again, that's not the purpose of the discussion today, those operating system APIs. But the key thing is that if pretty much anything you're interacting with on a daily basis is that there's actually APIs going on behind the scenes. But the nice thing is that unless you're coding for it, you don't know those exist. So we'll be throwing a number of different terms at you through the next course, the next 45 minutes. Again, this is the idea is to kind of get you used to some terminology. Some of this you may have actually heard and might have not been wanting to ask. So 2 different terms you may actually hear about is that in order for systems to communicate via an API, there needs to be a common language. There has to be some commonality. So there are various protocols or predefined structures that are used in API communication. There are many. Among 2 are SOAP, Simple Object Access Protocol. Those of you that work with Blackbaud CRM or Blackbaud Enterprise CRM or Alltrue or Illuminate Online, there is SOAP APIs there that are available. And then there's REST, which is representational state transfer, easy for me to answer. This is available in a variety of Blackbaud solutions and is the main focus of today's session. So again, especially if you're if you're working on Blackbaud or stuff for the first time, you may hear references to SOAP. Doesn't mean you have to say anything other than, hey, that's the type of protocol, and REST, and that is the one that we'll be talking about today. So we got APIs. We've talked about SOAP. We talked about REST, which is the key thing here. How does Sky API? We talked about API. What is Sky API? There are many different APIs involved in Blackbaud solutions. Sky API, we talked about REST, is a form of API, is a REST-based framework that was introduced in 2014, and I may have colleagues that fact check me when it was first released. I believe it was 2014. I haven't a chance to double check that. It was a while ago, to give a common API infrastructure across Blackbaud solutions. So there were different APIs available for different solutions. As we started introducing our next generation of products, we wanted to go through and actually have a common structure and framework in place here. So that's where Sky APIs came from. And maybe 2014 is when I remember the announcement of it. So this started with Razor's Edge NXT and Financial Edge NXT, and then it was expanded to other solutions. And we keep expanding what Sky API is going to be available for. Just in the last 12 to 18 months, we've made Sky API available for Blackbaud CRM and Alltrue and grant making. Grant making, one of the latest to have Sky API. So the nice thing about this is that they might have had different APIs in the past, and some of those, especially for Blackbaud CRM and Alltrue, their traditional SOAP APIs are still available. But this makes it so it's a common infrastructure. Interesting thing is that Blackbaud also uses Sky APIs. Sky APIs are not just for those in the outside world to access Blackbaud data. This is actually what's also used between Blackbaud products and even among Blackbaud products to facilitate communication among those solutions. So the APIs you're using now, or they're looking at using or whatever, are the same ones our developers are using. That is why sometimes you may see APIs released first before the feature. So again, I admit I have a computer science degree. I graduated with computer science. I'm not a programmer. I was asked a few years ago to start looking at and start explaining APIs. I'm like, what in the world is an API? Even I was like, my eyes are glazing over. I was looking at documentation. I was like, yeah, I'm not a programmer. I don't know how to make it this. So I started diving through stuff, and whenever I'm working with something new, I always try to base it on a familiar frame of reference. And when I started really diving into APIs, that's when the light bulb finally came on. I was actually uh, trying to make it more complicated than it needed to be. Let me give you an example. If you go to Google and you search in good old Robert Hernandez, and you look at the address bar at the top when you're searching for the good old Robert Hernandez, you'll see a web address or URL that at the end of it has that search question mark Q equals Robert Hernandez. So when I'm searching Google for Robert Hernandez, now if you were to search it right now, it adds a whole bunch of junk at the end. I just kind of I truncated it for the purpose of our discussion today. You're going to see this. I'm going to Google. I'm searching Robert Hernandez. My address says Q equals, search question mark Q equals Robert Hernandez. You may notice that sometimes when you're looking at websites, it's got these different things on it, sometimes based on what you may be searching for or looking at. Then I started taking a look at the Sky API documentation. And it talks about where we're actually going to open up the documentation in a little bit. And when I was looking at the API that says, hey, how do I use API to search for Robert Hernandez out of Razor's Edge? I got this very long string here that says api.sky.blackbaud.com, so on and so forth. And at the end of it, I saw search question mark, search underscore text equals Robert Hernandez. It's like, wait a second, I see a similarity there. It's a bit more involved. Yes, the address is longer. The phrasing is a bit different. Instead of putting a plus, it does a percent 20 sign, and a long story short, a long story there as far as why it does that. But when I started looking at this, I realized, oh, this address, there's a way to actually use the API to go out and look for Robert Hernandez and Razor's Edge. It's very similar when I'm looking at web address, but when I'm searching Google. Now, if you go try and put this address in your address bar, you'll get an error. Lots of reasons why there, and in this case here. But generally speaking, is that when you're looking at documentation, you're going to see basically a documentation, a list of all these addresses. And it's not really much different than what, in the case of what we're calling REST API, it's not much different than an address you may copy and paste or put into your address bar on your web browser. So the key thing is that instead of giving this scenario, I'm a user, I'm going to Google or a different website, I'm searching the website, I'm not actually accessing the databases or anything like that behind the scenes. I'm going to the website, I'm looking at data, I'm looking at news articles, I'm looking at posts or what have you. When I'm on that website, the back end of that website is going around and actually asking the data behind the scenes, hey, show or do this, and then passing it back down the chain over to the user. So when we're talking about APIs, that is the exact same scenario, but instead of between a human and a database behind the scenes, it is one service, one requesting service, asking and sending data back and forth to another service. Exact same scenario. Instead of accessing a website, instead of a website in this case is accessing the API. I'm skipping a few steps, but again, we're kind of looking at the concepts here. When I personally finally realized this, that's when the light bulb came on, going, oh, instead of a human, it's a robot asking for data. Other than and as the overall concept, a lot of stuff started falling into place. Now, of course, at the end of our session today, I'll certainly kind of open it up for Q&As, but certainly when I got over this mental hump, and it took quite a while to do that, then things started really falling into place here. Now things can get more complicated. We're going to be talking about very simple APIs and the ways to look at APIs. Again, we'll open up the Blackbaud documentation in a few moments to kind of start searching through, starting to make sense as far as what APIs are. But things can get much more complicated. Part of this is that kind of going back to that search text, I was searching for Robert Hernandez, but I may actually have options of, do I want to include or include or not include inactive constituents. So there is a parameter, a feature that's available for this that says, okay, I'm searching Robert Hernandez, but do I want to include inactive, easy for me to say, constituents? False. So show me just Robert Hernandez, the active Robert Hernandez's. Recordings for this will be available on demand after Blackbaud Developers Conference. So you'll be able to go through here now. Again, as we go through and look at the documentation, things get more complicated, and it's going to take a while to get used to it. But if you start getting these concepts, things will start falling into place. And this will be if you whether or not you want to program or if you want to know what's even possible. So there's that wide range here that I think this is going to help benefit. So a bit of the gist here is that REST APIs use web addresses. You hear of them called URLs, with structures similar to what you see in a typical web browser, just with some additional pieces. In fact, it actually uses some of the very same methods that are common to standard website web browser functions. One of them is called a GET. I'm asking for information, getting a web page. So when you go to www.blackbaud.com, that is actually a GET. The response is the Blackbaud web page. There's a concept that's called POST, sending information. Sending information is when if you fill out that contact us form, that's a POST. That is sending information over into the to the other side. There's a couple of other methods that you may see when you're looking at API documentation. Is patch and delete. Patch is I want to update information, and delete some information. Put and post the same thing. I forgot. Because we use post. I don't believe we use put in any of our APIs. I haven't used put at all, so that somebody may have to chime in or remind. I think in most cases they are, but somebody else may want to chime in there. Yep. See, people I work with this more than I do sometimes, or chatting. Thanks for hopping in there. So endpoints and calls, you're going to actually hear these phrases. So again, a lot of this is going to be introducing a lot of terminology, endpoints and calls. An API endpoint is that specific piece of data or type of data you can access or modify in the API, such as that search for constituents. An API call is that specific request. So that endpoint is what can I ask? The call is I'm making that ask. So in that previous example, this is calling the search constituent endpoint. So the key thing here, again, endpoints and calls. Endpoint, it's a specific piece of data. The call is that request or sending of data. And so I was calling the search constituent endpoint a few moments ago. New terminology, JSON. It's like GIF and GIF and potato. I pronounce it like multiple different ways, but JSON. Who is this JSON and why do you keep talking about them? This is another term you're hearing today. JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. Basically, when systems talk to each other, they may actually have different databases behind the scenes. One may be SQL, the other one may be MySQL. One of them may be Access. Who knows? Or Mongo database or whatever behind the scenes. There's two different stuff behind the scenes. They need a common way of sending data back and forth. So that's what JSON is. So it's used for the information that's returned as part of a GET call, or it's the data submitted as part of the post or patch call. So it's a key and value pairing. So what does this mean? I've got a couple of examples of what we call JSON objects on the screen right now. Now, when you take a look at it for the first time, like I did, I'm like, oh, what does this mean? But you start looking at it, if you remember the whole mind's eye pictures from years ago that you stare at it long enough and you see the tree or something, same thing happens when you start looking at this long enough. On the left, I have a single JSON object, a single thing. Maybe I asked for a specific car. it gave you back this code. But if you look at it, it says make DeLorean, model DMC-12, year 1981. Yes, XML and JSON has some similarities. XML is a bit more structured, at least from my perspective. So basically, I've asked for a certain car. It gave me a response about like a car. It's telling me the make is the DeLorean, the model is DMC-12, and the year is 1981. If anyone admits to knowing what I'm describing here, then you get extra virtual bonus points. For those of you looking at going, that looks familiar, that is the car from the Back to the Future. That I've now finished my poster with all the signatures from all the cast last weekend. Slight brag. On the right, I may be asking for a list of cars. So you can see that there's added these little brackets at the top and the bottom. This just means that, hey, I've got a list of different objects that came back, maybe from that list of a list in Racers Edge or Financial Edge. I've got the make the DeLorean, the model the DMC-12, the year 1981. But I'm also giving another one on that list, which is a Cadillac Miller Meteor Sentinel 1959. Okay, Daniel, you get the bonus points because you're the first person. I've been using this scenario for various discussions like the past 2 months. You're the first one to get it that quick. Yes, that is the Ecto one from Ghostbusters. So the key thing here is that now again, it gets more complicated than this, but all that JSON is doing, or Jason is explaining a bit of data. In this case here, either a single car to the left or multiple cars to the right. Key thing here is that connecting to Sky API uses a Blackbaud ID or your Blackbaud ID. What this means is that the permissions granted to that user are honored when using the Sky API. This means whatever changes you can make directly through the solution, even delete, can be done by Sky API. Even delete. Threw me out the first time when I thought I was working with just test data. Well, all of our internal data is test data, but I deleted something and was like, whoops, did I do that? Just be wary of the delete. If you do your early testing, you may want to consider creating someone who can't delete stuff. Razor's Edge NXT terminology change. I am just the messenger. You may have already noticed, but with the introduction of Razor's Edge NXT and Sky API, there has been a terminology change. This is going to come up when you're looking at especially the Sky API documentation. What was previously referred to as constituent ID is now called lookup ID. What was previously referred to as the constituent system record ID is now constituent ID or simply ID, depending on the scenario. So that's the key thing here, is that these are some changes that actually isn't more aligned at how other APIs out there work. But for those of us that have been working in the database view of Razor's Edge for a long time, or Financial Edge, yes, this was quite a change, but it does make more sense as you start diving into more things. So now you can start taking a look. Yeah, I think we solved one problem already today. Now we can start taking a peek at the API documentation. So I'm going to cancel sharing my screen for just a second, and we're going to actually dive into looking at another piece, just a moment, of content. Now let me share this. Oh, let me go back a step. So here's my screen. When we go through and start looking at, don't allow, come on, Google. All right, so hopefully you're seeing my screen now. This is our references to all of our Sky APIs within Blackbaud. One of the things I will note is you're going to see a couple different references to items. We've got Razor's Edge NXT, and then we've got CRM. This CRM here is our Blackbaud Enterprise Fundraising CRM. Razor's Edge NXT for a majority of you that are using an interface that's similar to this. Razor's Edge NXT, if you've got, which is our most common one, is the one that many of you may be looking at. So I'm looking at these Razor's Edge NXT endpoints. I'm going to go and scroll down and take a look at my constituent API. Going to go into my endpoint reference. These are all the different actions these are all the different data elements or endpoints that are available within the constituents area of the Sky API of Razor's Edge NXT. I'm going to go to that constituent search that we looked at just a moment ago. We will be sending out a number of get started links that are part of the. We're able to download the PDF that's included there as well. We'll certainly send that link out again at the end of the session today. So when I'm looking at that constituent search, that search constituents, I can see here that I've got that search text, that Robert Hernandez I was looking at before, as well as that fundraiser that include inactive. And what this is going to be doing here when I'm taking a look at all these are all the different things. These are the different filters I can be using in regards to when I'm searching for a constituent in Razor's Edge NXT via the API. It's telling me what all this is. What's the search text? What do I mean by fundraiser status? What do I mean by include inactive? What do I mean by strict search? What do I mean to include non-constituents? So all of this, again, it takes a while to kind of grasp and start thinking about. All this stuff that I'm looking at here is going to explain right out here what all this stuff looks like, or what all this stuff means, and it gives that explanation, and it lets you know whether things are required or not required. What it's also going to do is going to come back and it's going to give you an example of what gets spit out the other side. I'm going to search for constituents. In this case, all constituents that the name Rob. It's going to give me the response back in JSON. Again, it kind of, when I looked at it the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, what's this saying? But you start taking a look at it before, it says this is the ID, previously known as the system record ID, but this is the ID, 495 of this Robert. Or for those of you that worked in our demo databases, 280 is the common one for the real Robert. It's giving me his address, his email, fundraiser status, the lookup ID, and the name. Case thing here for the name here, as far as the ID here. So the nice thing is that you can go through, and again, it gets more complicated, but I can look at this and say, okay, I don't know coding. Now you know a little bit of coding, a little bit of JSON now. I can go through and see the ID, the email address, and I can see that stuff here as far as looking at the response here. Whether or not you're going to be a pro coder or a low coder, or just wanting to know before I talk to my lower pro coders what's possible, I can actually see what's coming back out of that API. Another quick example is I'm going to go through and look at, not only can we get constituent information out of the Razor's Edge, I can get actions out of Razor's Edge. And again, I know I'm focusing on Razor's Edge because it's the largest footprint, but everything I'm talking today as far as how to look at this is going to apply to Financial Edge, grant making, and what have you. Once I have a specific ID, if you look at the address bar, if you're looking at a specific action when you open the entire action record within Razor's Edge, you'll get the action ID within the address. So if I want to use API to look at that information, then I'll be able to see all the information that gets spit back out from that GET request. And I'll also be able to see in JSON. Notice this ID here is actually the ID of the action. But then come down here, I will see the constituent ID, previously known as the system record ID, for my constituent, in this case, Dr. Hernandez. So again, the nice thing is that without having to issue a single item, I can go through, I can take a look, I can see how it's going to come out in JSON. I don't even actually have to look at the JSON. We explain what all the different outputs are. So if you just want to know, hey, is this even possible? I am not touching a lick of code. I just want to talk with my developers, third-party, internal, Blackbaud, or what have you. Now you have the ability to actually go through, see How is Rob? Because I think maybe an alias somewhere that doesn't always pop up. To answer your question, the nomenclature change is not impacting database view as well. And can this be used to update? I have to go back and look at that for Financial Edge. You may have to reverse it. You can put in a reversing journal entry batch, but you can't update a posted one already, if I recall. We can certainly follow up on that, or those that may look at this in Financial Edge more than I do may have an answer. So again, the key thing is here is that now I'm going through and I'm taking a look at, now you can start diving in and taking a look at the information within the API of any of our solutions. Now, hopefully you can start getting a little bit of additional insight as far as what does all this mean. Go back and share my slide deck. Oh, making good time. Well, these are some of the examples I showed before. So that's API. So we've talked about how is data being shared back and forth between different systems, especially when we're talking about Blackbaud solutions. Those of you that have sat in several of our sessions before, this may be a very similar, you may recognize this graphic, but it's one that we find that resonates rather well with people. When you get a new smartphone, there are various built-in apps. There is the weather app. There is the messages app. There is the App Store app. And there's this app that many people don't use anymore that actually is used to make voice calls, to talk to people back and forth. All that comes pre-built with your phone. Now, chances are you add at least one social media network, you add maybe your own weather app, maybe you start adding your own health app, maybe you start adding the Blackbaud integrated payments terminal app or what have you. You're actually adding on to what already came out of the box. That is what we call extensibility, adding to what's already there. So you may hear the phrase of Sky add-ins. Pausing for a second. Jeremiah, the short answer is yes. We can get back to that. Oh, Ben's answering the question for me. So intro to Sky add-ins. Sky add-ins is an example of the extensibility, or is the extensibility features of Blackbaud solutions. This allows for adding features and functions without directly touching the underlying Blackbaud solution. This is available to customers, partners, non-related third parties. Most people refer to this and look at this as those custom tiles. And behind the scenes, it uses Sky API to exchange that information back and forth. So again, if you've got, in some of these scenarios, you may pop up, if you've got PaperSafe, if you've got Letterbox, we've already announced, the full page integration with Constant Contact. These are examples of Sky add-ins. So if you've got any of these third-party partners or third-party solutions that are integrating with Blackbaud, and you see these custom tiles or custom pages that are branded with something else, these actually aren't living within Razor's Edge itself, but within a third-party service that is surfacing in Razor's Edge NXT in this case. Where can I put Sky add-ins? And yes, look at Dan's comment. Dan knows this stuff about Sky add-ins. Where can I put Sky add-ins? I can put Sky add-ins in Razor's Edge NXT, the Razor's Edge NXT donor portal. Those of you that haven't really kicked the tires on the donor portal yet, there are some examples out there in regards to what Sky add-ins can we add to the donor portal. Financial Edge NXT, Blackbaud grant makings, the contact record in Blackbaud education management, Blackbaud enterprise fundraising CRM. There's some limited areas and it's for Blackbaud cloud operations only. All true, which is only those independent pages, and online giving. The where and the what varies by solution. So not every type of record and every solution can have every type of add-in. The documentation that we'll have in the get started will actually have those pieces as far as what is available for what. Some examples of Sky add-ins is showing data along with the other data. So here, this was my Hello World Sky add-in. Is that constituent weather and time. So you may want to call up Robert Hernandez, but you may want to make sure either want to talk about the weather or make sure there's no thunderstorms going through the area or what have you. This is an example that this is actually going out to the weather service. It's rendering the data about the weather in Robert's area and rendering it directly within his record within Razor's Edge. And I know this is still the top nav of Razor's Edge. I forgot to switch out my screenshots before the discussion today. So this weather data does not live in Razor's Edge. We don't want the weather data to live in Razor's Edge because the moment I load into Razor's Edge, it's out of date. But this will actually pop up within Razor's Edge, so it looks like, and for my users of Razor's Edge, it's all right there. No, add-ins are not available for Luminate, but you can still iframe stuff in the front end and the back end as well. Cross-referencing between systems. I really messed up the screenshot when I got into larger screen. As an example, Financial Edge NXT can automatically pull vendor giving summary information in Razor's Edge NXT. So the example here is that I'm on the A+ Office Supplies in Financial Edge. A+ Office Supplies is also a donor within Razor's Edge. So I'm using Sky add-ins and Sky API to pull up that vendor giving information directly within Financial Edge. So that way, I have permission to access Razor's Edge, but even without that, I can see, at least on the vendor record, the first gift, latest gift, greatest gift, all those key high-level areas that we actually see within Razor's Edge. You can actually replicate those within Financial Edge. My joke is, good or for bad, this helps you identify who you need to pay first. I get laughs and groans in both when I use that joke, but it works. Custom functionality. This is an example that several of you may have already seen already, but this is, I would assume that those of you who are database admins don't let anybody and everybody update information within Razor's Edge. But you may want to have a streamlined way to get that updated information here. So an example here is that using Sky add-ins, you can have a fly out record update request form. It's not going to immediately update that information, but it may send it to somebody key within within the development office for them to review the information and go and update it. That means is that they're looking at Robert's record. They may be on the phone with Robert and go, "Oh, I got his updated address. I can't change it because people don't trust me." They can actually still open this flyout, input this information, and send it to somebody else that has the permissions to review and update that. There are some ways to test this. We've got good, better, and best. I won't go through these in details, but we have a way you can use your live database. That's the meh. Create your own, you need to create example records. We do have a cohort database that's available. These are free shared databases that you allow you to do some stuff. Then there's also the ability to do your own to get your own test environment. This is an additional service from Blackbaud, so not get in the weeds there. If you're interested in getting your own test database, your own test Razor's Edge, your own test Financial Edge, then contact your account executive. It does come with additional Blackbaud subscription. Again, I'll drop another link here because I was not able to get my presentation submitted to the conference people ahead of time. So I put the PDF in my GitHub. You may want to screenshot this as well. If you're getting started as a pro coder or working with a staff, here's some good links to get through: the general developer info, the Sky add-ins info, Razor's Edge specific info. There is a very active Sky API community. And of course, a Blackbaud Developers Conference. You are here. We have a number of pro code sessions available. We've talked about pro code. What about other options? One that doesn't include as much coding. Again, I'm not a pro coder. I've copied and pasted enough stuff to be dangerous, but I'm not a pro coder. This is where the Power Platform comes into play, which you might have heard about a lot. This is the low code building blocks that's available. We used to call it no code, low code, but you still every once in a while still put in code there, so we just start calling it low code. What is Power Automate? It is part of the Power Platform by Microsoft. It's using APIs behind the scenes, but it hides those complex API details. It provides a drag and drop interface. Those of you that have worked with Razor's Edge NXT workflows is similar to that. It is user friendly for non-programmers. It's designed for low coders and empowers users without programming skills. In Power Automate, they have the concept of what's called a connector. What this does is that this wraps around the APIs behind the scenes in order to be able to access the information there in an easy manner. There's a number of different connectors across the board, everywhere from Microsoft to various different areas. These are the ways that says, hey, let's take the complicated API and make it easier to use. Blackbaud has a plethora of a number of, there's my triple word score of the day, of connectors that are available for the Power Platform. Next to Microsoft, we have the most connectors. We've got stuff from Razor's Edge to Financial Edge to Query to Reports to CRM to Altru to many different things. And we've got more on the way. So the nice thing about this is and we've got a number of different API, we've got a number of different sessions throughout the course of the developers conference that will introduce you to getting some more hands-on and working with Power Platform. But the nice thing is that even if you don't see the Blackbaud function or feature on this screen here, if it's got Blackbaud API, if it's got Sky APIs, you can use it in the Power Platform. As mentioned, you got those Microsoft connectors. And if you're, especially if you're K-12 and you're Google, there is a G Suite is available as well. And then again, we've got stuff from form building, they've got Power Platforms, got form building, contracts and signatures, project management, events, marketing, program management. All this stuff is available in the Power Platform. So if I want to shuffle data from one of these things to another, I've got some low code ways of doing it within the Power Platform. Some examples that are available with Power Automate in the Power Platform. Some of the popular ones are these ad hoc reports that come out of the system. So if I want to do a weekly mailing of past due actions or major gifts last week, all I have to do is set up that Power Automate, that flow once, set a schedule for it, and send those out. And those can, now that I've taken care of 2 hours of my time during the week to assemble this by hand and emailing it out, I can use Power Automate to send that out. Data collection. If I want to use a Microsoft or other form to do like a contact us form within and embed that in our website and automatically add it as an open action within Razor's Edge NXT, we can do that with Power Automate. So I got a Microsoft form. Those of you that have been in our regional workshops, this is a familiar scenario. So you put that form on your main website, they fill it out. This is how you can actually have more or less ad hoc forms working with Razor's Edge by sending that information in and sending that over there automatically. those examples that I showed before of the constituent weather tile, the vendor giving information, the record update request, all that I created um, using Power Automate and some other auxiliary things such as adapt cards or Power Apps. We won't be talking about during the discussion today. Some things can be done completely with Power Automate. Other things may be done with some additional things here. But again, I'm not a coder, and I was able to create these items using the Power Platform solutions. Also, you can actually extend I'm using Power Automate for this. You can actually extend data down to your desktop and mobile device. Power Automate is a separate subscription from Microsoft, but you may already have that depending if you're already in Microsoft Shop. But extending your data to your mobile desktop or mobile device. So these are, I'm an Apple person, I'm a Mac person, and on my desktop right now, I've got a number of widgets that it's constantly updating on like a twice a day basis. How much money have I received this year? What's coming in my total annual fund? How many new donors do I have this year? How many new constituents do I have this year? I've got that not only on my Microsoft desktop using widgets, but also have that on my iPhone, which means that if you got people that are asking you for the same pieces of the data over and over again, or they don't even want to log in or wait for the report, there are actually ways you can put these widgets on your desktops. And I assume you can do this for Windows as well. Again, I'm a Mac person, so I haven't really tested it, but this is a cool thing that as far as, hey, I can just glance at my desktop and see how we're doing for the year. With them. No, not Nintendo Wii Radio, but what's in it for me? Power Automate can be used for many types of daily tasks. Before my mind first got onto it, I had to start doing the stuff that worked for me. It's all about me. Now, so what's in it for me? Some of my first Power Automate things that I set up was a custom automatic reply for meeting requests that meet certain criteria. Sometimes I'd have meeting requests that mentioned hold. Hold for what? So automatic reply that says you said hold. What do you mean? Adding automatic buffers before and after meetings. So if you've got busy days and sometimes you may be on a call by the time you're done, you may find that your Friday is completely booked. I'm using Power Automate. It has nothing to do with Razor's Edge, Financial Edge, or anything like that. But I'm using Power Automate to automatically add 30 minutes before and after every meeting, so I have time to take a breath. For extended out of office, I reset my Outlook auto replies a couple times a day so that if I'm out for a while, typically by standard, somebody sends you something, you're out of office, will only respond once. So I got Power Automate resetting the out of office at least once a day, if not more. So if I'm out for many days and somebody keeps emailing me, they'll keep getting that out of office. So again, the key thing there is that if you want to start getting your hands on Power Automate, maybe use it for your daily task. I mean, maybe it has nothing to do with Blackbaud yet. And again, I think a number of different questions came about this stuff here. Again, I put in the link to the PDF. Certainly here, we've got a number of different low code options, how to get started using Power Automate. Again, we've got a number of different sessions throughout the course of the day, the 3 days as far as how to really get into Power Automate. But we have getting started guide. We have a very active Power Platform specific community. It's active second only to Razor's Edge. Many of the people you've seen help and answer questions today, and again, I really appreciate the assistance there, are very active in those communities, so they'll be there to lend help when they can. To answer some of the questions here is that we've got free, yes, I said Blackbaud and free in the same sentence, templates available. Most of those things that I showed as far as the flyout, the weather, the vendor giving information within Financial Edge, there are free templates available. Many others submitted not only by Blackbaud employees, but also several of those that are chiming in today. Those are available there. You need to start getting an idea about how Power Automate works. So we also have the yeah, so a number of those there. We have on-site and regional workshops and our monthly user groups. If you want to get hands-on, if you want to get face-to-face and one-on-one with these, we've got 2 more regional workshops in Houston and Chicago later this year. There are now 2-day workshops to give more time for hands-on, and are very active user groups. We have got the Blackbaud Developers Conference. You are here, and also we'll have a 1-day pre-BBCon workshop, and the sessions. And my colleagues in Blackbaud University would start reading me. We also do have some Blackbaud University courses that are available for this. I am remiss to putting those here, but if you've got learn more, then you should. There's a few classes. Some of those are pre-recorded. I think one's hands-on that helps you import stuff here. We've been to Toronto at least once already. And we do have a workshop in Canada. I'm sorry, in Chicago. The last time we were in Chicago, we had a number of Canadians there, but we alternate. This is our second year doing it, and we have to kind of rotate among the different areas. Okay. So we've got about 5 minutes left. Brian will be launching a survey in just a few moments. I think there's a number of questions that have come through. I either myself or others. Myself or others that were answering. Question is oh yes, only the developers that need a Power Automate license. So the users, the consumers of Power Automate, I'm saying Power Automate on purpose. Power BI, Power Apps, that's different. But those that are creating these flows, those are the ones that need actual the actual licenses. Brian, if you want to go ahead and throw up the survey. Any other questions that may pop up? Again, I think I saw some of the high level ones. Again, thanks to the likes of Ben and Dan and the others, colleagues that were Haley and some others in the session as well. I would appreciate you kind of stepping in there. This is definitely a team effort, and several of those have been working on this longer than I have. So again, if there's any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Name the constituent update file. I cannot remember on the top of my head. However, it should be obvious when you look at the showcase. I appreciate those of you joining today. Hopefully, I've seen it great to see that some of these the light bulbs are coming on for people. Again, when my light bulb came on for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh. Let me put back in the link. We'll try to get a more formal way of sending out the presentation, but like I said, I was editing this up until like the last hour today, just due to other obligations. And again, from the getting started link, we do have the links to the community as well as the user groups. The user groups are for if you're brand new, especially for the Power Automate side, whether you're brand new or seasoned professional, if you've got questions or just want to listen in and just kind of see what other people are doing, feel free to join those. I never figured out why I went to the kitchen. Back to the beginning of the presentation. You should get some notification. I can't remember the timing off the top of my head, but there will be on-demand versions of these recordings after today. I can't recall the top of my head what that timing is, and I think it may vary based on what your tier was, but there will be recordings available. It just escapes me what the timing is on the top of my head. Yeah. So I think Ben answered that question as far as when APIs are coming out soon for accounts receivable, and others are on the way. All right, I'm going to go ahead and leave the stage now unless there's any questions. I'll keep an eye on. No, thank you, Brenda. I'll keep an eye on the chat for the next couple of moments. But everybody have a great rest of the developers conference, and you got a few minutes to stretch your legs before the next sessions.